It's the hardest thing I've ever done. To qualify, I ended up having to do 4 heptathlons in 11 weeks in 4 different countries. I don't know how I did it, I just did it. Ever since I started heptathlons, I actually always believed I could be really good. I don't think a lot of people thought I'd qualify. I just had this crazy belief in myself. Being in the stadium and feeling it and belonging there was one of the most memorable experiences of my life. I've failed more than I've succeeded in the things I've done, and it's not necessarily what I've achieved that makes me really proud of my journey, it's who I've become in that process.
I would love for you to maybe expand upon your lead up to the Paris Olympics. Obviously there was a lot going on, you did a lot of events back to back. What was driving you during that period to get you through? Because that would have been a lot.
Yeah, it was, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. It was like, in my mind, there was never a reality where I wouldn't make the Olympics. So therefore, I put myself in a corner to qualify. So to qualify, I had to be ranked top 24 in the world. To do that, you got to do 2 competitions and you get like an average ranking score. To qualify, I ended up having to do 4 heptathlons in 11 weeks in 4 different countries, which is obscenely crazy, unheard of. And somehow I scored the 2 highest scores by an Australian within 5 weeks of each other, doing a heptathlon in between in 2 different parts of the world. Like, it was just, I don't know how I did it, I just did it, and it was crazy, yeah.
What do you think was like getting you to go from event to event? Like what was the driving factor?
I've always had this goal for a long time. Ever since I started heptathlons, I actually always believed I could be really good. I never put the effort in it thinking I'd just be a lane filler. I actually thought I could be something special. And I've known that since I began. I just had this crazy belief in myself. And I missed out on the last Olympics. Quite frankly, I didn't even really get close. I won nationals in 2020, scored 6,000 points, which is a breakthrough for an Australian. And then COVID hit, and obviously, like, that was hard for everyone, but for sport, I just couldn't do my sport. I didn't have opportunities to qualify like I wanted to, and yeah, I just never made the team, and I sat out of that, had a couple years of bad injuries. I basically sat out for 3 years, which was a long time for my sport at my age. And yeah, I guess in that time, I did almost walk away at one point. And when I did, I forgot how much just the process of training just makes my life better. It's not just about big performances or Olympics, it's just like that, being healthy. And I remembered how much I loved the process and athletics, and then I guess that desire and feeling to always try and get the best out of myself has never left me. So, you know, if I'm trying to get the best out of myself, the Olympics is the pinnacle. And I just always knew I'd be there one day. And so coming into this year, I don't think a lot of people thought I'd qualify. I certainly know, you know, my governing body didn't think I would qualify. I wasn't even on a long list. So like by May, I did a big breakthrough score in Austria. And at that point, even then they didn't think I'd qualify, even though so I've just sort of always fallen through the cracks and just always been a little bit underrated because I don't put myself out there, like, you know, so, yeah, it's been a pretty crazy year. And I guess I just always knew. I remember waking up just before I qualified for the Olympic, well, the last competition, and just knowing, I just woke up from a dream just like, I've made it. I know it. I just always had that knowing. I just had to realize it and actualize it through my body. But it was just always there.
So obviously being your first Olympics, what was the feeling like when you first walked out to the first event?
Oh, it was so good. Like, I know I said before the Olympics was anticlimactic. The feeling of walking out in the stadium wasn't. Like, that stadium was amazing. Like, the first event I came out, I did a personal best. I just loved it. I didn't even feel sick nervous. I felt excited. Just to see so many people, and like, oh, it was so special. It was everything you dream of when it comes to walking out into that environment. So that part was really cool. It was more so like everything outside of the stadium and like logistics and whatever, that was a bit difficult to navigate. But being in the stadium and feeling it and belonging there was one of the most memorable experiences of my life.
So obviously the heptathlon is such a unique event. How do you maintain your energy across all the different disciplines?
It's a really good question. Obviously a lot of training. Ideally, you only want to do, at the elite level, you only want to do 2 to 3 heptathlons a year. Like if you're elite, maximum 2. This year I had to do a lot more because I had to fight for that spot. So, you know, you do a lot of training and then you taper off and then you have so much energy from that taper. Heptathlon almost feels a bit easy, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the energy just comes from proper preparation.
Yeah. And then you just decide to go and do double what everyone else is.
Yeah.
We spoke about this a little bit even in the car before, but like spirituality, energy, what is it like when you're coming into competing to surround yourself with the right people and that right energy?
It's so important. Like, that was the reason I made it this season, but it's also the reason I didn't do well when it mattered, right? So obviously I qualified for the Olympics in an incredible way. I had an amazing team, my coaches, and everyone close to me that just backed me when it just seemed really dim. Like there were times where I was like, this is slipping from me, and having the right people was what gave me that almost like delusional grit to just push through, even though it seemed very impossible. And then when I made it, I really struggled being in that environment because it was my first real senior team, you know, and so you're surrounded by people you're not quite used to. You're sort of forced to have to work with people you've never really worked with before. And for me personally, I had a lot of additional logistics around my heptathlon and how I was getting into the village, which did drain the energy.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, my Olympic experience was special in that I made it and then I got to experience that stadium, but performance-wise, it just wasn't there. My energy wasn't there. And you know, I wasn't carrying any injuries or anything. I don't even think I choked. I think it was just a huge lesson for me to protect my energy more and be better prepared for, like, this is what it's going to be like. You know, set yourself apart, do your own thing as much as you can. Only listen to those people who believed in you when you know, you basically were nothing. So that was the lesson.
So on that big stage, it's like a big learning curve, obviously.
Oh, it was huge. It was a bit of a gutting way to learn the lesson because I did underperform a lot because I just didn't have the energy. But I certainly know, like, the confidence I draw in my sport is not from what I've achieved, but what I've overcome and how I learn lessons from what seems like a failure.
Yeah.
And I've just have 100% success rate of like coming back from what seems like a pretty disappointing thing. Yeah. So the lessons I got, I almost feel like I had to learn all those big lessons the first time round to set up for a bigger comeback in the next one. So it's exciting because I know that about myself. It's just a little bit bittersweet because I wish I didn't have to learn it at the Olympics, you know?
It's always the way how you don't feel like you want to learn those lessons, but at the same time, I guess that's the beauty of like the sport, and it keeps driving you to back it up and go again because you're like, I know next time I'm going to be so much better, and that's sick. Yeah,
it is. It's humbling, and it's also a good story to share because, like, you know, it's more relatable, the failure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, not everyone wants to hear that I'm a winner all the time. Yeah. They want to hear, who were you when you didn't make it, when you fell on your face? Yeah. Who were you then, and who did you become from that moment? That's what people want to see, because that's relatable. Because like, I can see myself here in that ditch, but I can see that this person was in the ditch and now they're at the peak. Yeah. And I can do that too. And that's how I feel about myself when I reflect on those experiences. I'm like, look, that sucked, but you don't recognize good without bad. Yeah. It's like that contrast that really sets up the good to be even better. Yeah. So, you know, I've certainly reflected and put that experience where it needs to be. And now I'm just loving the process.
That's so cool.
What the next
I always like, my saying is there's no light without dark and there's no dark without light. So when you don't experience those moments of darkness then the light doesn't shine through. So it's like you've got to take both as much as each other. It's like enjoy the highs, but also enjoy the lows because it's going to happen. So there's no point trying to run from it.
Definitely. And I've gotten to a point in life now where, like, when I feel low times, because it always happens, I recognize it. I'm like, this is molding something. Like, this experience is not for nothing.
Yeah.
And like, if I can step back and look at it from a macro perspective, I see how, you know, like you think of an amplitude curve, you can only go as high as you go low.
Yeah.
You can only build the high through the depth,
Yeah.
you know, and only tall towers can be built with deep, strong foundations.
Yeah, that's so sick.
that's how I feel about it. And so obviously you still feel the emotions of it, but you don't hold on to it. Just sort of let it flow. It might get stuck a little bit, but flow, and then all of a sudden it goes. And you're like, move on.
What's so going on that then, what would be something you would say to a young person coming up? No, not just like athletics, but like, I guess, trying to achieve a high goal and those ups and downs. Like, what would you?
Yeah, I think I would say that I've failed more than I've succeeded in the things I've done. And it's not necessarily what I've achieved that makes me really proud of my journey. It's who I've become in that process. You know,
I love that.
That's when I look back at my career or anything I've done, I'm not going to gloat about what I achieved or what I've made or what I've done. It's like, look at that person it made me.
Yeah.
You know, if I have a big goal or a big ambition, what sort of person can hold the weight of that? And that's your actual goal, is to become that person who can be in that position. Yeah. You know, everyone wants this, but then they have all that and then they can't handle it. You can't handle what it's like when you got attention. You can't handle it, it's like when you got like $1 million in the bank. Like, do you know what that's actually like? Do you know the friends that, you know, you outgrow, or the friends that you lose, or how people reveal themselves when you start to, you know, like, you don't know till you walk it out.
Yeah.
And that whole process, that is the gift. And that's something I wish I knew earlier, because I was super ambitious and wanted all this stuff to pull me out of like what I thought was, you know, I didn't like where I was at one point. And so it pulled me out. But then I didn't realize was that this wasn't what I wanted. I wanted the feeling of being someone that could hold that. And that was a huge realization. Yeah.
That's pure gold right there.
Yeah. Anyways, I've got to get warm up.
Yeah, 100%.